Thanks again. So I'm going to cover a topic that I've been spending probably since 2006 giving presentations on to many professional societies, the special inspection and progress inspection requirements of the construction codes. I'm going to cover some of the highlights of the 2014 code changes in Chapter 17 and give you a preview of some of the operational impacts that may be coming your way. Okay, so just some basic background, because I know there's still many people out there who still refer to controlled inspections. I heard mention of a 10A form, I believe it was last week. So for those of you who still remember the 10A form, basically special inspections and progress inspections, what are they? They are inspections by a third-party entity that's not the department, it's not the contractor, it's some other entity. It's typically a PE or an RA or someone under their supervision, confirming compliance with the approved construction documents. Under the 68 code, of course, they were known as controlled inspections, and when we got onto the IBC model, we started calling them special inspections and progress inspections like everyone else. So who can perform special inspections? DOB registered special inspection agencies. Registration has been open and mandated now for over a year, and I think it's going quite well. There's going to be much more enhancements and outreach on it going forward with the 2014 code, as well as more outreach from OTCR on special inspections going forward. And progress inspections operate similarly to special inspections. I'll touch on them a little bit at the end. It's the same concept of checking for compliance with the approved plans, but there's no required registration with the department for that. And who can perform progress inspections are PE or an RA with relevant experience or someone under their direct supervision. Okay? Now, again, similar to the 2008 code requirements, special inspections will again apply to new buildings and alterations to existing buildings. The requirements can be found largely in the same chapters and locations you found them in the 2008 code. We're talking Chapter 17 of the Building Code, Title 28 of the Administrative Code, 28.114 and 115, and 116 have requirements there. They've all been tweaked and a couple of commas added here, some words. The word immediately has been moved around a few times, as you'll see here, but the requirements are largely the same from the 2008 code. Okay. Now, everybody's favorite rule, DOB rule, Department Rule on Special Inspections, 1 RCNY 101-06, the Rule on Special Inspection Agencies, which covers registration as a requirement, how to register, as well as the organizational requirements and the qualifications for the supplemental inspectors performing the inspections. That rule has been in effect since July 1, 2008. It's been amended once, and it is going to be amended again to line up with the 2014 code. I'm going to highlight some of the changes to Chapter 17 for you. You'll see some renumbering, some renaming, some new requirements, some tweaks here and there, and because of that, some of these changes were such that we have to amend the rule on special inspections. It's due in the city record, to be published in the city record and on our website any day now, with a public hearing to be held over the summer for those of you who are interested to review and to comment. And the plan would be to open registration for any new particular 2014 code items over the summer. And stay tuned for more information on that. Okay. So, like I said, coordination with the 2014 construction codes. In some cases, we adopted some new inspections where the IBC adopted the new inspections, and that required some renumbering of code sections. Maybe we renamed an inspection. As Joe mentioned to you earlier, pile foundations has now been renamed deep foundations to line up with current industry's terminology. So we have to amend the rule on special inspections to incorporate things like that. And we have 3 new inspection categories. These are adopted primarily from the IBC, but mainly these are one of them in particular, high temperature hot water piping is a New York City particular amendment that came from the Mechanical Code Committee. This is a new type of system that's addressed in the mechanical code that now requires a special inspection similar to high-pressure gas piping. Okay? So the other new inspections are mastic and intumescent fire-resistant coatings, which is from the IBC. It's a special inspection that the IBC requires, and post-installed anchors. The installation of post-installed anchors has been subject to special inspection for quite some time now. It's finally being addressed in the code. Previously, the special inspection was required in the ICC Evaluation Service report or in the Department Buildings Bulletin, or both. Okay, now, like I said, there's going to be some operational impacts, so we have to rename the existing registration categories for the special inspection agency registrations. We're going to open up registration for the new items. The plan would be to do some kind of a conversion for everyone for all of the 08 code categories that you're registered for to perform these inspections, to convert your existing 08 code registration to the equivalent 2014 code registration. So that way it would hopefully be seamless for the special inspection agencies already registered. It would just be updated for you. But again, we have those new items that we would have to open up registration for you, hopefully over the summer. We have an accreditation deadline that needs to be addressed in the department rule, where now we have new inspection items that if you're a Class 1 entity that's looking to do this, you're going to need some time to get accredited to do this. And I would start that as soon as possible, as soon as we get you more information on the particular registration qualifications and requirements for those inspection items. I would start talking to the accrediting bodies about getting yourselves accredited to those if you want to do that as a Class 1 entity. We, of course, have to update everybody's favorite form, the TR1 form, and all the other TR forms that go along with it to have the right 2014 code references. And, of course, because we are, as James went over with the effective date, we're still going to have the 2008 code in effect for certain projects for some time. We're going to have the 2008 code TR1 still on the website for use on those projects where it's applicable. Okay. So now, just some of the highlights of what changed in Chapter 17. BC 1704.1, the general requirements, was reorganized and really expanded and clarified to a great degree. And it doesn't really have too many new requirements in there, but it incorporates some of text that had been in the administrative code and other portions of Chapter 17, maybe in the department rule, and it broke it down into three different categories. The duties identified for the applicant of record who's filing the plans, the duties identified for the special inspection agency who is going to do the inspections, and the duties of the permit holder as far as how they perform those inspections. Go over those briefly for you. So some of the duties that were identified for the registered design professional of record. This is the architect or engineer filing the plans. So they have to identify the required inspections. So that was previously in 28104.7.7 under the 2008 code, and that's a similar requirement. It's still there, but it's been also consolidated to be listed in one spot for you here. Responding to field discrepancies, so an issue of something's not matching up from the job site. It's the applicant of record that we want the report to go to, and that applicant of record responding. That discrepancy is either acceptable and we can deal with it in one way, or it's not acceptable, build it how I drew it. Okay. Reviewing of shop drawings where they're provided. That was a requirement that was previously in the department rule on special inspections. That's going to remain there as well, but also been brought into Chapter 17. This is something that we got as a comment from committee members, that this reorganization would help everyone by putting the requirements in a central location. Reviewing those deviations from construction documents and filing those that are approved, those that the applicant of record wants to accept that deviation, that would have to be filed with us afterwards. Special inspection agency duties. Again, independence from contractors performing the work. This is nothing new here. It's the obligation to avoid a conflict of interest from 1 RCNY 10106, and they have to be hired by the owner, which was previously in the 2008 code, BC 1704.1. This is a common question that we received, so we wanted to be sure we highlighted it for everyone. We've had buildings bulletins published on this as well. So, expect lots of information to keep coming out about this, but those are two very important requirements: the obligation to avoid the conflict of interest and to be hired by the owner. The applicant of record, of course, this comes up also very frequently, can perform special inspections on the projects where they filed the plans, and they're the applicant of record for. They can do it, provided they're registered and meet all the qualifications for the required inspection, and they comply with the independence and conflict of interest requirements. There's no specific prohibition just by being the applicant of record on a project that you are prohibited from doing the special inspections or progress inspections on that same project. Okay? Special inspection agency has to confirm that the construction documents that they've been given are sufficient for them to properly perform their inspection, or they have to go out and get more information. They have to confirm that shop drawings and sketches have been accepted by the registered design professional of record. All this was previously in the department rule. Now it's in the code as well. During the course of construction, they have to inspect and confirm that the work complies with the construction documents, shop drawings if they've been provided, and the specific inspection requirements of the code and department rules and regulations. Many instances, the code itself will spell out how to perform the inspection, what to check for, how often to perform that inspection. Sometimes it's in a rule as well. As you'll see, we're going to be expecting at least one rule on how to perform a particular special inspection. Reporting. The special inspection agency has to report discrepancies to the contractor. When they're not corrected, those discrepancies have to be reported to the owner and to the applicant of record. And this is where the word immediately has been moved a couple of times, but conditions known as hazardous to life, safety, or health that are not immediately corrected have to be reported to the immediate attention of the commissioner. Okay? That was a change, and that was a comment that we got from the code committee to readjust the text here somewhat from what was in the 08 code. Okay? Reporting is continued. So, new from 1 RCNY 10106, it's been incorporated into the code. A final report at TR1 would be required prior to a C of O and letter of completion. Reports of partially completed work can be accepted, and of course the record-keeping requirement of 6 years from the date of project sign-off has been brought into the code as well. Now, that was a special inspection agency. Now the permit holder, their permit applications require identification of special inspection agencies, i.e. the TR1 identifying who's going to do the inspections has to be in with the department before a permit can be issued. The designers of temporary installations subject to special inspection, e.g. sheeting and shoring, have to be identified for the department. And 72 hours notice in writing has to be provided to the entities performing the inspections. The permit holder has to keep the work accessible and exposed for special inspection, and they have to correct the deficiencies identified by the special inspection agencies. Now you'll notice that giant block of text at the bottom, that's a nice looking legal disclaimer looking text is meant to point out and clarify that, just because a special inspection agency gives a satisfactory inspection and the department accepts that report of that special inspection, that doesn't absolve the contractor of the need to have done their duty to install what was on the plans and to have complied with the code as far as how to perform that installation. Okay? Okay. Inspection of fabricators. So just similar to what was in the 1968 code, special inspection must be performed in the fabricator's plant of work. If the work was subject to special inspection at the construction site and that same work is performed at an off-site location, it's still subject to that same special inspection. The exception here is for approved fabricators. The Building Code 170422 has approved fabricator requirements, and here I showed some precast concrete. So these requirements are usually based on nationally recognized approved fabricator programs that are where the fabricator is audited by a third party and given some kind of national recognition, such as the PCI program for precast concrete. The change here that our committee felt very strongly about was the incorporation of in-plant special inspection even for approved fabricators, but limiting it to a minimum of 5% of the work done by the approved fabricator in the approved fabricator shop. So even with approved fabricators, there's still some in-plant inspection required, just to be sure that the design intent is being met in the plant, and that the quality control is being, quality assurance also extends to the plant as well. Okay. Okay. Now, many people have asked over even the last week, you know, really, I didn't know there was a list of approved fabricators. Can I see one? So yes, we have a list of approved fabricators on our website, nyc.gov/buildings. Under development, you'll see a section called Approved Agencies Overview, and you'll see that there's a segment further down the page called Approved Fabricators, and you can see a list of approved fabricators, approved concrete producers, and the rule that accepts all of these things. Okay. Some of the highlights of the changes to specific special inspections. For structural steel, welding can now be exempted on the plans by the applicant of record who prepared the plans if the calculated connection strength is greater than or equal to 2 times the required strength. For those of you that remember subchapter 10 of the 1968 code, it had a similar requirement in there to be able to exempt welding from special inspection. So the committee got together and proposed this to the department, and we've accepted it and incorporated it into the code. High-strength bolting, similarly, can also be exempted from special inspection if, in this case, we've got an extra caveat, that inspection of those connections is made under BC 1704.3.2 details, which is check that the steel is put in the proper location and the right lengths and et cetera, in the right framework, et cetera, that kind of level of inspection, that the location of all the members and elements is proper. If the bolts are checked during that inspection, then a check as a high-strength bolt may not be required if you have bearing type connections, and again, the connection strength is 2 times what's required, but these connections have to be specifically called out as such on the plans by the applicant of record who prepared those plans. Okay. Reinforced concrete. We've incorporated some of the exemptions for concrete testing. Now, this would be an exemption from concrete testing only. The inspection would still have to take place. The special inspection would still have to take place, but the concrete testing can be waived for structural work with less than 50 cubic yards of concrete, which was in a buildings bulletin, I believe number 26 of 09, as well as now we've added an exemption for 1 and 2 family homes, 3 stories or less in height. There are some minimum strength requirements, as well as both of these would require, again, the applicant of record specifically exempting the testing on the plans. Again, our code provides a minimum quality assurance program that's required by the building code. Anybody can require any greater level of inspection or testing or quality assurance that they want. Our code provides the minimum required for an acceptable plan. Okay, Masonry, 1704.5, the requirements of when level 1 and level 2 special inspection for masonry are required has been clarified, we think. This is a big improvement that we made with the committee to kind of clear up a lot of exceptions that were written in by the IBC to the text here. And an exemption was also proposed by our committee, and we accepted it, was to exempt specific alterations to existing masonry buildings from special inspection that are less than 10 square feet in any 100 square feet of wall area, and again, must be specifically exempted on the plans by the applicant of record preparing those plans. Further, for level 2 masonry special inspection, which has in some instances a continuous inspection requirement for the special inspector, there are some exemptions where you can reduce that by by designation by the applicant of record from a level 2 inspection to a level 1 inspection. This is for alterations that are less than 50 square feet to existing masonry walls, and the area of work has to be contiguous. Okay. Wood construction special inspections, very similar to what was in the 08 code. Just one clarification here that goes along with the progress inspections in chapter 1 of the building code. The progress inspection BC 110.3.3 structural wood frame special inspection. This used to be called structural frame inspection. That's now been a clarification. So structural frame special inspection is now only required for the structural wood frame as a progress inspection, Yeah. And there's been some additional requirements when using metal plate connected trusses spanning greater than or equal to 60 feet. This is a requirement that we got through the IBC 09. Okay. Subsurface conditions. These are all the special inspection requirements for geotech soil conditions, as we used to previously call them. So you'll see some name changes. So site preparation, as it was named under the 08 code, is now subgrade inspection. Soil investigations, because it's more than soil, it's rock too, is now subsurface investigations. Some of the highlights of what changed there is the new requirements are the 50%, previously 50% of the borings had to be witnessed by a PE. Now the committee proposed and we accepted that 100% of the borings have to be witnessed by an SIA, by the Special Inspection Agency registered with the department. Since we have this registration requirement, we can relax the requirement that the PE witness 100% or 50% of the borings. Okay. Now, also as far as some subsurface condition inspection requirements, with the recognition of what you heard from Joe, micropiles and helical piles, we have additional recording and testing requirements specific to those types of installations in Chapter 17. Smoke control systems. Now, the applicability to post-fire smoke purge systems has been clarified in Chapter 17 with the appropriate references to the mechanical code. And from the IBC, we got expansions into the qualifications. This is something that it seems like they're reinforcing where we were headed with our qualifications so many years ago, that fire protection engineering, mechanical engineering, and air balancer certification are a requirement. That's now in Chapter 17 from the IBC. Mechanical system special inspections have been coordinated with the revised noise control requirements of 928 and the inspection requirements clarified, we think, to make it a little bit simpler for how to comply. Right. Structural stability has been reorganized in a very good way, I think, to make it a little bit more reflective of how the inspection is being used and carried out in the field. It's got a reorganized inspection requirements section that calls out each of the individual structural stability components that we require special inspection for, and gives you a program requirements afterwards. So one thing we did was, previously it was called structural safety during construction operations. We named it back to more similar to what it was under Rule 16 under the 68 code, to structural stability of existing buildings in the 2014 code. Many people used to misconstrue that the structural safety during construction operations included confirming whether or not the contractor's employees were wearing proper personal protective eyewear and things of that nature, and we're worried that they were now responsible for things of that nature, but this is specific to the structural stability requirements. And we've added back exceptions for lintel replacement spanning less than 4 feet so that they can be exempt from the structural stability inspection. One of those items that was listed under structural stability is excavations. So protection of the sides of excavations from the 2008 code has been still called excavations under the 2014 code, but a slightly shorter title. And we've now incorporated, along with some enhancements in Chapter 33, for new provisions for the use of slurry wall construction to protect the sides of excavations and keep trenches open. So we have requirements addressing that directly in Chapter 17 now. Underpinning, as Joe mentioned, there's a clarification in underpinning that the underpinning elements that are installed have to be treated to all the other required special inspections as if they were permanent foundation elements, because they are permanent foundation elements in most instances where they're going to be left in place, and that's your adjoining property's new foundation. So they would be subject to all the appropriate inspections, including concrete, welding, pile driving, whatever the other inspection items are that come up. Demolition, we have mechanical demolition. Again, this is non-handheld mechanical means of demolition used from within a building are still subject to special inspection. The addition here was the use of non-handheld mechanical means of moving debris from within the building was added to being subject to inspection. So if the demolition is being carried out by hand, a giant debris pile was being created by these workers by hand, and then a bobcat was being used to push the debris around from within an existing building, that would be subject to special inspection. Okay. Raising and moving of a building was added by Local Law 29 of 2013, and the special inspection of this activity. This would be raising a building to get it above the flood elevation. Was pretty important post-Hurricane Sandy activity that needs some additional on-site supervision to be sure that we don't have any further distress on people who are already in a flood zone, and now they're asking a contractor to do something that's in some cases can be quite complicated, to lift an existing building on its in place and then build a new foundation underneath. So the inspection was added by the City Council and in 2013 to ensure that we have additional on-site supervision, and then we have moved it into the appropriate location under structural stability. And we've incorporated some of the requirements of, we have a requirement in Buildings Bulletin 2013 number 9 for how to carry out some of these operations. Okay. Monitoring was addressed in the building code under structural stability for including construction documents. In the construction documents, requirements and triggers for monitoring, including operational specific parameters such as frequency, tolerances. So, you say, well, we'll monitor the building, but who are you going to report to? What are the appropriate actions to be taken at what thresholds during monitoring? This is now specifically addressed in the code. Now, this one's a mouthful here, a long name here. Private on-site stormwater disposal systems, which used to be called site storm drainage disposal and detention systems under the OA code. We've clarified the requirements here when putting in dry wells and other private on-site stormwater disposal systems that, we've broken it out into subsurface investigation requirements and installation requirements. So the subsurface investigation items would take place prior to the design to confirm that you can actually put in one of these systems, and the installation specific requirements for during construction. And now here's requirements for individual on-site private sewage disposal systems were provided in the code. Now on the TR1 it was previously just called septic systems. This is the new terminology, and expect some additional requirements for this to be developed by rule for what exactly would be required when installing and inspecting one of these systems. Okay. Fire-resistant penetrations and joints. This is keeping up with the latest terminology from the IBC. Previously it was fire stop, draft stop, and fire block systems. And one of the enhancements that's been incorporated here is we've adopted the ASTM standards for penetration systems and joint systems. So there are specific inspection requirements there and ASTM standards to refer to. Okay. Then, of course, we've heard lots of mention of emergency and now the new term standby power systems. So standby power systems, which were added by Local Law 101 of 2013, also now include, they're also subject to special inspection, just like emergency systems. And post-installed anchors, as I'm sure many of you know, post-installed anchors are installed after the concrete has been hardened or the masonry has been installed. You're installing something in after the fact. It's typically mechanical anchors, adhesive anchors, or screw anchors. They'll be subject to special inspection. Like I said, they have been subject to special inspection in the past, but now they're recognized in the code itself. Now, these inspections are required to verify compliance with the approved plans. There will still be a buildings bulletin. There will still be evaluation service reports for these items that will need to be verified. They have specific installation and inspection requirements in these evaluation service reports that kind of certify that, when they're installed to these parameters, you're going to get this load capacity out of it, and to manufacturer's instructions. Now, ACI 318 requires continuous inspection for certain adhesive anchor installations. So sometimes the inspector will be required to be out there continuously. Now, a little on progress inspections. This is, again, very high level. These are inspections required during the course of construction to confirm compliance with the approved construction documents. There are roughly the same number of progress inspections that we had before. We had footing and foundation progress inspection, lowest floor elevation for buildings in a special flood hazard area. We have what was previously known as, again, structural frame inspection is now going to be called the structural wood frame. So this is to clarify, this applies only to wood frame structures, not to other types of structural frame systems. Fire resistance rated construction, which we've incorporated some of the requirements of Buildings Bulletin 2010 number 20 for applicability and the overlap with fire stop systems. And energy code compliance, of course, is still in effect. This is per the 2011 New York City Energy Code and the TR8 that's on the books right now. As James mentioned earlier, expect to hear more about the energy code coming up. And of course, everybody's favorite time is final inspection when you get to sign off the project, right? So, okay, and again, progress inspector's duties, we have a rule on what the progress inspector is supposed to do, 1 RCNY 101-07, and they're required to use qualified personnel to perform the required tests and inspections to confirm all of these individual items. And they're inspecting for compliance with the approved plans. And again, no registration required with us in advance for performing progress inspections. They have similar requirements, reporting deficiencies. They have to be independent from the contractor, same as a special inspection agency. Again, no prohibition from the applicant of record performing progress inspections on their own projects in and of itself if they meet the independence from the contractor and qualification requirements, and they have to be retained by the owner. And with that, I thank you, and I'm